know where you are, Expert Talk with me, Tigo. And today, as always, we bring in experts that know a little bit more than Tigo does. Yeah, okay, stop looking at me. A lot more than Tigo does about business, about growing, about living your dream. And today is no different. Today is no different. Today we have somebody really, really special. We brought in Mr. Aaron Scott Young. This is a man who believes that you should build a business, not just something that you work at, and it's not really a business. You're working for yourself and working a glorified job. Mr. Aaron Scott Young is here and we're going to hang out with him.
Expert Talk is brought to you in part by PodNation TV, the podcast to broadcast network.
Expert Talk is produced and distributed by Melrose 11 LLC. Lights, cameras, take action with Melrose 11.
Happening.
So good to be with you. It's a lot's happening, but right now the only thing that matters is this conversation. So it's so good to be with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Thanks for coming on, man. I know that, it was kind of a last minute thing and you said yes, and we totally appreciate that you would come out and hang out with us because you're definitely a trailblazer we need to talk to.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. I'm all yours, my friend, all yours. And thanks for asking me. And obviously I must not be too busy if I can do things last minute.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I have to tell you something funny before we get into this. My business partner, Ann, was recently at one of your events, and we're going to get into that. But she called me up and she said they're from Laughlin. Well, see, I'm in Nevada, and there's a town here called Laughlin.
Laughlin. Right.
So I thought you owned a casino or something. I didn't know what the heck you did. I'm just telling you. I didn't know it was Laughlin and Associates or Laughlin,
A lot of people get confused. A lot of people do.
So let's talk about this. You've been an entrepreneur for 30 plus years of your life. So basically you started when you were what, 2-3 years old?
No, thank you very much for that. No, I was 19. I had 19 when I had my first business that had employees, and sold that business when I was about 22. So I started the second recycling business in Portland, Oregon. Portland's a very green city anyway. So when I was 19, I started this recycling business. I met a super cute girl, wanted to marry her, didn't think she'd want to be married to a garbage man. So I sold the recycling business, took the money in middle of 86, and started one of the very first cellular phone companies, meaning sellers of cellular phones in the Northwest. Built that up, closed part of it when the industry changed, sold the shop and all the equipment, which is still there, interestingly enough, all these years later. Wow. In 1992, 93, took my only job I've ever had, which was the vice president of sales. I was 29 years old. And I was vice president of a NASDAQ traded multinational, 350 offices around the world. They made me their VP of sales, which at the time I thought seemed logical. But now I look back and think, what the heck were they thinking? That's insane. I would never put a 29-year-old in charge of my sales for a NASDAQ company.
Well, you had to be a really creative, talented guy at 29 years old.
Well, we did manage to almost quadruple sales for the 3.5 years I stayed there. And then
you were the right pick.
And I made enough money in the stock that when I left there in 96, I started to buy companies and sell companies, and then learned more about taking things I'd learned from my little adventures and applying them. And a really smart guy that I met he's very successful in another business now, but he was a nuclear fuel engineer, and he with a doctorate in nuclear fuel creation, and he worked for NASA. And he said to me one time, we were having a funny talk about lots of stuff And he said, SAR. And I said, what does that mean? He said, SRA. And I said, what is that? And he said, same rules apply. The same rules that apply in parenting, apply in entrepreneurship, apply in your spirituality and your healthcare.
Wow.
Whatever works, you're going to see that repeated over and over again. And
okay, so I got to stop you for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because that's really important. And I know there's a lot of people out there. I'm asking the man, come on, give me a second. I know you're going, wait a minute, what? So I got to ask you, because there are people that have not started their entrepreneurship journey. They have not stepped out there, or maybe they have because we're kind of coming through COVID. I'm not going to say it's over. I don't believe it, but we're coming through it and learning how to adjust with it. Like kind of bad, winter storm in Chicago. We just figure out how to get through it. But they started something maybe while they were off, while the businesses were shut down, and now they're going back to work. And the reason why they're not sticking with it or they're not taking that journey is because they don't believe the same rules apply. They don't believe that these things connect. So can you just kind of expound on that? How does being an entrepreneur, being in business also apply in their regular life?
Well, I don't know if the answer that's coming to my mind is really the specific kind of answer you're looking for, but I do want to say this. Many people that start a business and they start to grow it and they start to hire people, they get this belief that the employees are going to steal their secret sauce. Mm-hmm. And they get real fearful of that. And I tell them all the time, as a matter of fact, I talked to your partner, Ann, about this. I said, look at the people that come to work for you who are better at you at sales or better than you at marketing or better at you at IT or better at you at something. That's why you hired them, because they're better than you, right? In that way. The very fact that they came to work for you is enough reason to not fear they're going to steal from you. And now, put a pin in that. You said there are people during COVID who worked from home and found that they could do a side hustle because they had time, they had discretionary time. Yep. The reason people will give it up going back to work is out of fear. They're afraid to try to make the payroll every month. They're afraid to know how to do the marketing. They're afraid when they've got a security blanket or a lifeline like a salary, then they take a risk on doing some side deals.
Okay, Aaron, I've got to ask you, because you were just talking about people they need a W-2. They're afraid. We talk about false evidence appearing real all the time here, and y'all know I do. Don't even sit there and say I don't. I do. We talk about that all the time. And let's talk about, what does that mean? Where is the security blanket when you step out there on your own? How do you do that safely?
Well, safely, okay, there's three keys to becoming successful in business that I've discovered. One is you have to have a good idea. If your idea sucks, it doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter. If your idea is stupid, it's not going to work. Okay. And so I see things all the time where people are very dedicated to an idea that is a complete and utter fool's errand, but they're going to pursue it into poverty, and that's okay. They will learn their lesson and they'll come back smarter. So one is, you've got to have an idea that the market has an interest in what you're going to do, right? You've got to have that. Second thing is, you got to have enough money to survive so you don't have to be afraid. You've got to have time, runway, to get your plane up off the ground. So the second one is, you've got to have adequate funding. It doesn't have to even be a lot of money. It depends on your lifestyle, right? If you don't mind going small for a while to let all the revenue go to the baby, to the airplane, you will get it off the ground. And the point one on that one or 2.1 is, don't eat all the money that you make either. You've got to keep some cash reserves, right? So you have money to adjust. So first one is, you've got to have an idea the market has an interest in. You've got to have adequate funding, and you need to have a plan. You need to have some awareness of how to operate a business, because as Michael Gerber said in the E-Myth many years ago, most people that start a business are great technicians. They know how to change oil in a car. They know how to write code. They know how to mow lawns. They know something, but they have no idea how to run a business, which is different than the product or service delivery to the customer. That there's a difference, and most people don't understand that. So if you've got a decent idea and you've got adequate funding to let it grow, and you have you don't have to like wander around in the woods blind, banging into every tree and falling down every cliff, right? If you have a plan that's based in reality, you need to learn it from somebody. You could learn it from somebody like me, or from Warren Buffett, or from Bill Ackman, or from Michael Gerber, or anybody else. There's a ton of people you can learn from, but you need to follow some rules so you don't have to learn it all yourself through your own pain. You know, if you do those things, you can be less afraid, but there is no doubt being entrepreneurial is not for the vast majority of people, and it is not for the faint of heart. No matter how much they want it or think it's right, it's a constant risk. You're forever at risk.
Yeah.
And even when you think you've made it, you know, we went through the market crash 08, 09, right? Well, it didn't catch up to my company till 2010. And it was like somebody turned off the spigot and millions of dollars disappeared out of cash flow. Millions of dollars. Just like, what happened?
Wow.
Well, we work with small businesses. They all went out of business, which meant we had no cash flow. So we looked at all of our team and we said, so we were doing great. My partner and I, we were kicking butt. We were living in beautiful homes. I'd built a great big custom home. Just, I mean, deluxe, like I never even could have imagined growing up. And he lived in a beautiful home also in up on a golf course. Anyway, long story short is the market crash happened. We looked at our staff. We knew how long it had taken us to build this great team. We knew from other bubbles, this bubble would pass. This struggle would pass. So what did we do? We opted to take a 75% pay cut because we are far and away the most highly paid people in the company.
Right.
And we both short sold our homes, moved into rentals, but we never fired any employees.
Wow.
So part of being a good entrepreneur is being a steward of the business. It's not just self-serving, as they would say to you on the news. That's crap. Most business owners I know will be the very last person paid. They'll pay all their team before they pay themselves. And if you can't live that way, then you probably shouldn't do it. You shouldn't be, everything else has got to be up for grabs. If the golden goose, or I should say the goose that lays the golden eggs, if it's at jeopardy for a minute, like a bubble pops, you've got to make sure that you feed the goose and you wait for your turn to eat. That's what
and
an
a lot of people are
entrepreneur
going
does.
through that right now. I mean, especially coming out of COVID, you know, they learned the hard way because, you know, especially in America. I mean, people are seeing this all over the world, but especially in America, a lot of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And for almost a year and a half, there really wasn't a paycheck. I mean, it was a little version of that. And a lot of the small businesses, they don't live much better than paycheck to paycheck, trying to get through it. You know, some of them don't even have paychecks. They're just holding on.
People would be surprised to know, according to the last census, only 4% of business owners, only 4% of the 22 million people that said they owned a business or were self-employed, only 4% only break $1 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
96% don't get to 1 million. And we hear about these unicorns. We hear about Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whatever. We hear about somebody that just sold their napkin idea for $1 billion to Google. Okay, well, those are stories. Those are, and they're true stories, but it's, you know, it's no different than talking about Jesus or something. He was a unicorn too, right? So there's only one. So don't get all hung up on being Jesus. Don't be hung up on being Bezos. Don't hung up on being on Musk. Just be you in your community. And if you're at 600, 700, 800, 900,000 in revenue, you're already beating the odds. Wow. You're already kicking butt. Feel great about it. If you get to 3, 5, 10, 20 million in revenue, you are becoming the unicorn.
Wow.
So
okay, we got to take a quick break. Hold on. And when we come back, you know, basically what you've been talking about is, you know, unshackling, the Unshackled Owner. We're going to get into that and what that all means. We're going to talk a little bit more about Laughlin, because we're not talking about the town Laughlin. We're talking about your business. And my business partner told me to ask you about horses. I'm not real sure where that falls in here, but in a minute, we're going to come back and find out. So sit right there. We'll be right back.
Expert Talk is brought to you in part by PodNation TV, the podcast to broadcast network.
Okay, Aaron, we were sitting here, we were talking about the journey of an entrepreneur, and I got to agree with you, brother. It's not for everybody. I get up 2 out of 3 of the days going, what the heck am I doing? And why am I not Miss Goss in cubicle 4 sometimes? I got to tell you, but you have, I don't want to call it a principle, but Unshackled Owner. What does that mean to you?
Being an unshackled owner means the business is working harder for you than you're working for the business. Now let me tell you, when you start, you have to be all in, right? When you start, this 4-hour work week thing is a nice title for a book. But when you first,
I gotta laugh at that one.
you gotta go, you gotta work. The problem is most entrepreneurs never get out of startup mode. And they get a lot of juice from being the one who knows the answer to every question, who solves every problem. There's people constantly knocking on the door going, hey boss, can I just get 2 minutes? And then they know how to coach that person and they like it. That's their juice. Well, I don't like it. I like a business to get operating where it does not require me other than from a chairman of the board level. So what happened was, for years, I would get called into companies, many companies you're familiar with. And I'm not going to say, but I'll just promise you that some of these are companies that you use to find out what are all these illnesses that you have, and then that you're convinced you're going to die. The one that most kids grow up, they log into at school, the largest internet delivery via the internet of educational content, that company, one that makes, I just tell you, they had 3 vice presidents, eyes, lips, and face. So you can guess what companies these are, but these are big companies. And I would charge $25,000 a day plus expenses to go sit with them. And I always thought it was a huge waste of both of our time. Wow. Because we couldn't do enough. So I thought, well, what is it that these people really are all struggling with? And what is it that I'm doing that's made it possible for me to hang out doing what I want to do and not showing up in an office? And I boiled it down into 7 principles. And I offered a class called the Unshackled Owner 4 years ago. I had 13 companies, including new car dealerships, hedge fund manager, large law firm, anyway, a bunch of interesting companies that were pretty good sized, successful businesses come in, and they all paid me their $5,000, and I put it in the bank and I didn't spend it because I knew they were all going to want their money back. I just knew it. This will be too simple. They're going to go, oh, come on, you can do better. Well, guess what they told me at the end?
All right. What?
This was too hard. The class was too hard. Can you make it simpler?
Wow.
So what I thought was super easy, they thought was super complicated. Now, the great news is once you're in the class, you keep going to the class. And so there's no more charge because my goal is to get them to the finish line. So now I've helped these guys grow more locations, more money under management, more apartment complexes purchased, more, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And it's very exciting for me to know that my little contribution to the world can be teach people how they can be successful and to scale. Because my ultimate goal at 57 years old is I want to keep more companies in business for more years, making more money. And if I do that, that means they will hire more people, pay for health insurance, invest in, give money to charities, sponsor the Little League team. So I don't ever need to be involved with any of that if I can just help the owner do better. And that's what I'm doing now in my life.
So, well, 57 is cool because I'm 57 too. So there we are. We're twins. We're probably born
All right, there we go.
2, can we veer off the road a little bit? And I've got to ask, and I know people out there are going, Tigo, ask him about what does this mean for virtual versus in person? Because now we're opening up again. Events are opening up again. People are going. At the same time, people are going, I'm never going to a concert again. I may never sit in a movie theater again. I'm afraid. I don't know what else is out there. And every time we turn around, there's a different version of COVID coming around the corner. So what is this doing for corporate America now that we're in this new normal? How do you see it projecting down 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
What do I think is going to happen?
Yeah.
I think there's 2 things that are going to happen. One is companies have learned that they don't need so many people under their roof, and they don't even really need them on their payroll. They can 1099 them, which is why I believe there's going to be an explosion of little one-person corporations and LLCs. Mm-hmm. That's 1. 2 is there is a need for personal interaction. There is a need. People kind of got zen a little bit, but a lot of depression happened. A lot of abuse happened. A lot of drinking and drugs happened too. And people do need it. And so what I'm seeing is that for events and places where people are getting together, I think there's going to be an increase in not only teaching business principles, but talking about how to organize your spare bedroom at home, or some life hacks for staying, active during the next pandemic, where you stay in shape and you don't gain 30 pounds. I think there's going to be a shift in how healthcare is put out there, because there'll be less big groups and tons of individuals. So there's going to be a shift. I don't think that everybody's going to stop going to the office, because there are some places and some people who crave the interaction, the live interaction. But I think
that's where a lot of hybrids are going to come from, where it's going to be events that are live, but they're also virtually streaming in, which we're doing a lot of that right now.
I'm just saying, we came from 150 years ago, 180 years ago, we were an agrarian economy, mostly farms. Then the Industrial Revolution really took off in the middle 1800s, and a lot of people moved to the cities, and that's great, but there's still farms, right? As a matter of fact, there's still hundreds of thousands of family farms that are not that big, including I have one, right? The point is, just because things change doesn't mean the other stuff goes away.
Right.
Right. But there is a change, and entrepreneurs, here's the other message to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs' job is to not be hung up in what political party's in office, or how angry they are at their governor, or I hate a mask mandate, or this is terrible, or this is phony, or forget that crap. Entrepreneurs' job is to look at what is happening in reality and adjust so their business stays viable and relevant during whatever is going on today. Because our job is to meet the customer where they are, not to drag the customer over to our political opinion, or our, gripe against gay people in a cake or whatever. Forget that. That's not your job. You keep that private. You keep that to yourself, and you go take care of your customer, because the customer is the one that keeps you alive, right?
I totally agree.
That's what we do with the changes, is we adapt.
And before I let you get out of here, we've got a couple of things we got to cover. I'm going to get hate mail, and I know the people out there are going, what does Laughlin do? If he's not in the city of Laughlin, what exactly do they do? So I'm asking, hold on. What exactly does Laughlin do, sir?
Laughlin Associates, named for Harley Laughlin, the guy that started it back in 1972, was the original Nevada incorporation service. So if you've ever heard that Nevada has special laws and rules that are really cool, well, we're the grandpa of that industry, which is quite big now. But when my partner and I bought it 20 years ago, we expanded it to all 50 states. So now we're one of the largest incorporators, LLCs, creators in the United States. We do resident agent service. We do something really cool, which almost nobody does, which is called our corporate veil protection. The thing that makes a corporation or LLC useful is that it separates your personal estate from the business activity. And the separator is called the corporate veil. But almost, I would say 95+% of the entrepreneurs that I meet destroy the corporate veil, and then they get audited or sued and they go, what happened?
What happened? Yep.
I've been paying my fee to the state. Well, they didn't know the rules and they didn't follow them, so they didn't get treated like a real company. So that's what Laughlin does. And we do events and all kinds of cool stuff. And that's the answer to your question. That's one of my businesses that I own.
You know, and I'm going to take a second and talk to you guys, because if you're sitting there, I know I have friends, I have family. The minute you say LLC, C Corp, S Corp, glaze over the eyeballs, you're not paying attention, you go, come back and talk to me. If you're starting a business, if you're in a business, this young man may not tell you, but Tigo going to always keep it real. If you're doing it as a sole proprietor or a partner, you're crazy. You need to talk to this man and protect your assets. That's what it's all about. I want to ask you, you know, what we call it RFC. What's your right fit client? Who's that perfect client for you? Who are you looking for?
So even though we definitely work with people who are just getting started, and we get thousands of those clients, right? If I was going to buy a mailing list, or if I was going to reach out for a Laughlin client, not an Unshackled Owner client, but a Laughlin client, I would be looking for somebody who's beyond survival. You know, they're not hanging on by their fingernails. So they're 3 years in business. Maybe they've got 1 or 2 employees. They have fairly predictable revenues, because those are the people that now understand they have something to lose. When even though you need us at the beginning, because you forget about the painting that your grandma gave you and the coin collection that you put together since you were a kid, and all that stuff that can all be taken away in a lawsuit. You don't think about that when you're just getting started and you don't have any revenue. You don't realize that it's all there to be taken away if you do it wrong, but people aren't thinking that yet. So I like people that are kind of already kind of chipping along. They've got fairly predictable revenues. They don't have to be big, just they're not afraid anymore. And they see that they're going to survive this thing. That's a perfect fit for us.
And they've made it a little bit down the road. They're not just finding their way through the darkness right now.
Right. And if you talk to Ann, you'll know that the people that she met when I met her at the event, most of them are pretty darn successful. We have a lot of very successful customers, and we help them, what we say, start, grow, profit, and protect. That's what we do. Start, grow, profit, protect.
So you've been in business for, you've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. We talked about that at the top of the show. You've been in business as a speaker, as a consultant, as a trainer. You know this game called business. What made you choose Laughlin, you and your partner, to buy? I mean, it's a business that was already in existence. You could have went anywhere. What made you choose this?
We already had 5 other companies that were competing with Laughlin when Mr. Laughlin died. So their estate lawyer called us and said, are you interested in buying Laughlin? And we spent about 9 months of due diligence, and then we bought it. And then we either sold or kept separate or collapsed into Laughlin, the other companies. And the main reason I was buying Laughlin was because it was 29 years old at the time. And it had a good database. I had intended to fire all 80 employees and use my existing teams, but leverage the name and the longevity. Then I found that there were a whole bunch of good people, and we did let about 30 of the 80 go, and then we just cranked it up from there. It's a really good company with a really terrific team. Our average tenure now is 14 years at Laughlin. Our clients stay with us forever. I have clients that go clear back to the late 70s that are still alive and kicking and doing stuff.
That's amazing.
And it's been a great ride. And now we're taking it public. And so,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we're at the very end of that road. We should be publicly traded sometime by the end of the summer.
I need to write that down and buy me a couple of shares. Okay. So you've mentioned event a couple of times. My business partner, Ann, recently was at one of your events. I don't know if you have to be a member of your organization. How do your events work? Is there anything coming up that, that the people that are watching should know about?
They could, if they want to go. So the event is called the Magnify Your Wealth Summit,
Okay.
Magnify Your Wealth Summit. And it's for everybody, but especially for people that are, if they want to just learn, it's great. Here's the good thing. If you learn the right way to do it at the beginning of the journey, you'll make a lot less mistakes. You'll get to your goal faster and you'll have more money. But anyway, whatever, they can check it out for themselves. Just go to magnifyyourwealth.com. There's a video, and the next event is in October. I don't remember the dates, middle of October in San Diego. Ann was in Denver, but this one's in San Diego.
Magnifyyourwealth.com.
Yeah, magnifyyourwealth.com.
And before I let you get out of here, I've got to ask, I know you're a speaker, a trainer, a coach. We talked about that. Is this still something, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and have you come and speak at their group, are you still doing that? Is that still an opportunity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So there may be a few caveats in there, but I still do a lot of speaking. Even during COVID, I still did a lot of speaking. I speak all over the world. I've spoken on 5 continents. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I still give talks. Remember, I don't go to the office. Laughlin, I've only been there one time in 4 years. Wow. And that was to tell the team that we were going public before we made an announcement. I mean, that was the first time I've been there in 4 years. When I bought it, I was there 5 days a week, and I'd fly back up home to my family and I'd go back and be there all week. But when you learn those principles that I teach in Unshackled Owner, you realize that if you give it all for a couple of years, you'll begin to extricate yourself, and you own the company doesn't own you. And you never did ask about horses.
No, that was great to say that. We got to ask about horses because I got to be able to look Ann in her eyes. But before I do that, how do they find you if they want to hire you or have you come into their event as their keynote? How do they find you?
Go to AaronscottYoung.com, or you can write to Kelly, Kelly, my assistant, Kelly at AaronscottYoung.com. That's my speaker page. That's also how you can learn about Unshackled Owner. That's separate from the companies we own. That's just my speaker page.
Directly to you. So if we want to get in touch with Aaron, you go to AaronscottYoung.com. I'm not telling Kelly's email address again. Y'all gonna have to rewind to see it because she's not sending me hate mail because she got all this junk mail. And you guys know, don't send this man, Shackley invitations and all that kind of stuff. He's a serious dude. Don't have him call Tigo saying what happened. Y'all, if you're serious, contact him. If you're not, come back and watch another show. Okay, so I gotta ask you, because Ann will hurt me if I don't get this in here. She said you mentioned at the event or at one of the meetings that you have horses, and she loves horses. So before we let you out of the hot seat, can you tell me about your horses?
So I've along with my second son, who manages the whole thing. He's the foreman of the ranch, and we have a small breeding program of Tennessee walking horses and something that another breed that's a heritage breed we're really doubling down on. Matter of fact, I own about 1% of all the animals that are registered right now, which is a lot. That's a big percentage in horse breed. Something called the McCurdy Plantation horse, which is an old-timey, smooth-gated, pull a wagon, pull a plow, and then take you to the dance in town, nice and smooth, where you don't bump along. They're fabulous animals. As a matter of fact, we were breeding mares this morning before I put on different clothes to come see you. And so we have the horse farm, horse ranch, and then I have some other places I can go hang my hat as well that don't have all the livestock. But that's what I do. I love it. I've been involved with horses, and you can see there's a number of Western.
Yeah. You got the thing going back there.
Yeah. So that's what I don't play golf. I don't play tennis. We raise horses, and we do multi-day. I'll go back up in the backwoods out of cell coverage, and everything for 4 or 5 days, packing in, and it's phenomenal. This country we live in is a beautiful place. Most people don't have any idea what's only an hour out of their neighborhood. that is fantastic. And I
Being
tell
here
you,
in Vegas, I mean, it's 10 minutes. We got Red Rock. It's 10 minutes outside of the city.
And that's
90%
gorgeous.
of the people never see it. They
yeah,
never
they don't
even
ever
leave the
go.
town.
They don't
Yeah.
ever go. If there's
I
not a
totally
7-Eleven
understand.
5 minutes away, they don't go.
Yep,
So
I totally
I'm telling you,
understand.
enjoy that countryside. It's beautiful and we're lucky to have it.
Well, I appreciate you, sir. I thank you so much for jumping in at the last minute and saying yes to this interview. I've learned a lot. I consider you a friend. I hope you'll come back. Maybe you can come back and do a Q&A session with us, a little live
Absolutely.
9-minute session. That would be awesome. You are fantastic.
Thanks. You name the time and I'm there.
Awesome. Well, everybody, you know how we do this. We love bringing in experts. Aaron is definitely one you want to know. You know, aaronscottyoung.com. Check him out. And as always, I thank you for watching. I hope you'll be at the next episode. I'm Tigo, and I'll talk to you next time.